The stars stretched endless across the dark sky, bright rivers of light flowing through the black sea of space. And in one corner of this galaxy lived a powerful empire. Its people were strong, proud, and feared by many. Among them stood their great leader, a father known for his iron will. Yet in his home lived a secret he never wished to speak about. His daughter, she was different. She was not like the others, where her people were tall, sharp, and full of strength. She was small, gentle, and quiet. Her eyes carried warmth instead of cold command. Her hands shook when others raised their voices. The father often looked at her and thought, "This child will never survive in our world." He called her broken, he called her weak, and in private moments his voice grew sharp like a blade. "You are not my heir," he would say. "You are a mistake, a half-blood with no purpose." For the daughter's mother had been human, a fragile species from a faraway world, a species the Empire respected for its curiosity, but never saw as equal. The girl grew with those words like chains around her heart. Each day she tried to hide her tears. Each day she tried to stand taller. But no matter what she did, her father's eyes carried shame. Her people whispered behind her back, "She is broken, she is useless, she will never lead." Yet deep inside her chest something burned quietly, something even she did not understand. One night, as she stood at the edge of the great tower, watching the stars, she felt a strange pull. Her heart raced, her breath caught, and for a moment she saw an image. Fire spreading across worlds, fleets burning in the void, her father kneeling before shadows that swallowed the sky. She clutched the railing, her hands shaking. She whispered, "What is happening to me?" But no answer came, only silence. The next morning she went to her father, her voice trembling. "I saw something," she said. "I saw destruction, I saw war," but the father laughed. Not with joy, but with scorn. "More weakness, more fear. You bring shame with your dreams, child. You are broken, and broken things cannot save empires." He turned away, his cloak sweeping behind him like the shadow of judgment. Her heart sank, but the vision did not leave her. Each night it returned, louder, clearer, showing fleets she had never seen before, alien designs sharper and darker than any known ship, their weapons cutting through planets as if they were paper. And in the vision her people screamed. No victory, no hope, only ruin. She told no one else, for no one would believe her. Instead she began to write down the images, sketches of ships, patterns of attack, numbers she could not explain. She was no warrior, yet she felt the coming storm deep in her bones. It was not imagination. It was something more. Days passed, then weeks, and one evening, the Empire's scouts returned with trembling voices. They had picked up a signal, unknown, powerful, moving fast toward their borders. Fear spread across the halls, commanders argued. Warriors sharpened their weapons, and for the first time the father's face turned pale. But even then, when the daughter whispered, "I knew this was coming," he silenced her. "Do not speak, you are broken. You will only spread fear." His voice was strong, but his eyes betrayed the truth. He had seen her sketches. He had seen her trembling hands, and he wondered, how could she have known? The girl sat alone that night, staring at her hands, small compared to her people, fragile compared to their strength. But inside she felt something heavy, something that was waking up. She was human and alien both, unwanted, untrusted, but perhaps chosen. Her father could not see it. Her people would not believe it, but she felt it. The stars outside the window burned brighter, as if watching her, and deep in the distance, the enemy fleet moved closer, silent, merciless, unstoppable. The Empire prepared for war, proud and unyielding, yet blind to the one who might hold their only chance, the girl, the broken daughter. And in the silence of that night, as the sky trembled with unseen storms, a voice inside her whispered, not of weakness, but of destiny. "You are not broken," the voice said. "You are the spark." The girl closed her eyes, and for the first time she believed it, even if no one else did. The broken daughter walked through the shining halls of her father's palace, her steps soft, her head low. Around her stood walls of silver stone, glowing with the power of her people's empire, but none of that light touched her heart. She felt like a shadow in a place of giants. Her people were proud, built tall and strong, their voices deep and commanding. They trained as warriors from the moment they could walk. Their bodies moved like blades, their hearts beat with one purpose, victory. But she was different. Her blood carried something else, something softer, something human. The humans were seen as strange by her people. Too fragile, too emotional, they wept in joy. They laughed in sorrow. They dreamed of things that had no logic, no reason. The Empire respected their inventions but never trusted their ways. And so when the daughter's human blood was revealed, whispers began. She will never lead us, they said. Her mother's weakness lives in her. Some sneered when she walked past. Some looked at her with pity and some with cold disgust. She learned to walk with her eyes on the floor, to hide her hands in her sleeves, to stay silent when others mocked her. But inside, she felt something no one else did. Her emotions burned strong. When others trained with swords and weapons, she sat by herself, sketching the strange ship she saw in her visions. When others shouted commands, she whispered questions. She wondered why the stars seemed to pull at her chest. Her father often watched her from afar, his face like stone. He saw her trying to lift weapons too heavy for her hands, saw her stumble where others ran, saw her kindness when others demanded silence, and each time he muttered to himself, "She is broken, she is not my heir." Still, the visions did not leave her. Sometimes at night she woke, gasping, sweat on her face, seeing fire in the skies, planets shattered into dust, her people crying out as darkness swept through the galaxy. She wanted to scream these warnings, but each time she tried, her father silenced her. Then came the day when the first signal was confirmed. The Empire's scouts brought word of an unknown fleet, vast and silent. Their weapons burned with unnatural light, their ships shaped like blades, cutting through the void. Commanders gathered. The Empire trembled, but still they stood proud. The daughter listened from the shadows, her heart pounding. Every word the scouts spoke matched the visions she had drawn. The ships, the weapons, the speed. She felt her blood run cold. It was real, all of it was real. That night she approached her father again, her voice shaking. "Please listen to me. I know how they will strike, I know what they will do." She held out her sketches, lines of fire and destruction. But her father's face twisted with anger. "Enough," he thundered. "You shame me with your fear. These are drawings of a child, not the plans of a warrior. Go." Her hands trembled. The papers fell to the floor. She bent to pick them up, but when she looked up, her father had already turned away, leaving her alone in the vast hall, the echo of his footsteps heavier than any words. She left the palace and wandered the training grounds. Soldiers marched with discipline, their armor shining, their voices strong. They looked at her with disdain. She looked at them with quiet sorrow. She envied their strength, but they did not see that she carried something they lacked. The human spark. One of the younger soldiers whispered as she passed. "She is not one of us," his friend laughed. "She is human blood, weak blood. She will never fight." Their words stung like blades, but she kept walking, her heart whispering louder than their voices. "I will prove them wrong." In the quiet of the night, she sat under the stars. Her mother's stories returned to her mind. Her mother had spoken of earth, of oceans that stretched forever, of skies that turned gold at sunrise, of humans who laughed even in suffering, who dreamed even in darkness. Her mother had once said, "Humans are fragile, yes, but in that fragility, we find our strength." Those words returned now, stronger than ever. Maybe her father could not see it. Maybe her people refused to believe it, but she felt it burning in her chest. Her blood was not a curse. It was a gift. The visions came again, this time clearer. She saw the enemy fleet turning its sharp wings toward her world. She heard the thunder of their weapons. She saw her father kneeling, broken, just as before. But now she also saw something else, herself, standing in the fire. Her hands raised, her voice strong. Not broken, not weak, but unyielding. When the vision ended, she gasped for air, her body shaking, yet her heart steady. She whispered into the night sky, "I will not be broken, I will not be silent. If no one will believe me, then I will carry this alone." Far away, the enemy fleet moved closer, their shadows spreading, their weapons ready. Her people sharpened their blades and built their walls, but none of them knew that the key was not in their strength, not in their pride, but in the half-human daughter they called broken. The stars above flickered as if waiting, as if holding their breath, and the girl sat under their watch, her hands clutching her sketches, her heart whispering the truth. She was human blood, she was alien world, and in that union lived a power none could yet see. The Empire prepared for war. Ships filled the sky above their homeworld. Engines roared like thunder. Warriors marched in lines that stretched for miles. The father stood tall at the center, his voice commanding, his people listening. And yet, in the shadows, his daughter watched, unseen, unheard. The scouts had spoken true. The enemy fleet arrived sooner than expected. Dark shapes tore across the horizon of space, their ships sharp and alien, their weapons glowing with colors unknown. No one had ever seen such designs. No one had faced such power. The Empire thought itself unbreakable, but that belief was about to be tested. The daughter felt the storm before it struck. Her visions had shown her this moment. The first attack, the fire, the fear. Her hands trembled as she whispered to herself, "It begins." She wanted to run to her father, to warn him again, to beg him to listen. But she knew his answer already. He would not believe her, not yet. The fleet clashed. The Empire's ships formed great walls of defense. Their weapons fired in blinding streams. Their warriors cheered with pride. But the enemy did not fight like any they had known. The enemy was silent, swift. Their attacks twisted and strange. They moved like shadows, breaking the Empire's lines with tricks and patterns none understood. The father roared commands, but his orders met silence as ships were torn apart. One by one, his proud warriors fell. His shining ships cracked open, fire spilling across the black sky. Fear spread through the fleet. The unthinkable had happened. The Empire was losing. The daughter stood in the observation chamber, her heart pounding, tears burning her eyes. She wanted to scream. "I told you, I saw this." But the words stuck in her throat instead. She grabbed her sketches, her hands moving quickly, drawing the strange curves of the enemy ships, the odd patterns of their attacks. She saw something the others did not. The enemy fought with unpredictability. They did not follow order or logic. They feinted where they should have struck. They retreated where they should have advanced. It was chaos. It was madness. But to her, it was familiar. It was human. She ran to the lower decks where younger soldiers sat trembling. Waiting for orders, she held out her drawings, her voice shaking but strong. "Look, they are not unbeatable. They trick you into expecting strength, but they use weakness as their weapon. They use surprise. They use chaos. Fight like them. Do not fight like us." The soldiers stared at her, some laughed. "She is the broken daughter," they whispered. "Why listen to her?" But one young pilot frowned, his eyes on her sketches. "Her words make sense," he said softly. "We follow patterns, they break them. Maybe we must break patterns too." A small squad agreed to try. Desperate and afraid, they turned their ships and copied her plan. They broke formation. They twisted and turned in wild movements. They used unpredictability. For the first time, the enemy slowed, confused, caught off guard. The squad struck, destroying 3 enemy ships. A small victory, but a spark of hope. The father saw it on his command screen, his eyes narrowing. "Who gave that order?" he demanded. His commanders looked confused. None had spoken those commands. Then the report came. It was the squad who had followed the broken daughter. For a moment the father froze, his heart heavy, his pride wounded. Could it be that her weakness was strength? Could it be that her human blood saw something his pure warriors could not? But his face hardened again. He could not admit it. Not yet. The battle raged on. The Empire fought with fury, but the cost was high. Their ships burned. Their warriors screamed. The enemy pressed forward, relentless, and yet, in the middle of the storm, one fragile voice whispered strategies. One fragile hand drew lines and patterns that no commander saw. And slowly, carefully, the tide shifted. When the battle ended, the sky was filled with fire and wreckage. Thousands of lives lost, half the fleet destroyed. But the Empire still stood. They had survived the first attack, barely. The daughter sat in silence, her body shaking, her mind replaying the chaos. She had helped save lives, yet no one cheered for her. No one thanked her. Her father walked past her as the soldiers cleaned the wreckage. His eyes fell on her for a brief moment. His lips parted as if to speak. But then he turned away, his cloak trailing behind him, silent as stone. His pride still heavier than his gratitude. But the soldiers, the younger ones, they remembered, they whispered to one another. Her plan worked. Her eyes saw what ours could not. For the first time, they looked at her not with disdain, but with quiet wonder. The daughter sat alone in her chamber that night, staring at the stars. her chest heavy with exhaustion, yet her heart burning with something new. Not just fear, not just pain, but purpose. She whispered to herself, I am not broken. I am different, and that difference saved them. Far beyond, the enemy fleet regrouped, their losses small, their strength still vast. But in their dark chambers, their leaders whispered, the half-blood child has seen us. She is dangerous. And so, even as the Empire celebrated survival, the shadows grew deeper. The war had only begun, and the broken daughter was no longer invisible. She was becoming a threat. The Empire had survived the first battle, but the air in the palace was heavy. Corridors once filled with prideful voices now echoed with whispers of fear. Ships still burned in the sky above the homeworld. Warriors limped back from the front lines, and for the first time in centuries, the Empire felt weak. The daughter walked among them, unnoticed at first, her small frame moving between wounded soldiers. She carried water. She bandaged wounds. She spoke softly to those who groaned in pain. Some stared at her in surprise. Her touch was gentle, her voice calm. And though she was not a warrior, the soldiers felt strength in her presence. Her father stood in the great hall with his commanders, maps of stars glowing before them. His voice was sharp, his orders heavy, but behind his strength, doubt crept into his mind. He remembered the squad who had turned the tide, the squad who had followed the daughter's plan. He remembered the enemy ships burning, yet his pride chained his tongue. He would not admit it. Not yet. The daughter returned to her chamber. The visions came again, stronger now. She saw the enemy moving through distant systems, consuming worlds. She saw their ships twisting like shadows. And in her mind, she saw herself again, standing not as a child, but as a leader. Her heart raced. Her breath shook, and she whispered, "Why me?" When she looked into the mirror of polished stone, she saw her human side staring back. Soft eyes, fragile features, not like her father's sharp and commanding face. And yet, something burned in those eyes, a spark that would not die. Her mother's words returned to her, words spoken long ago. Humans may bend, but they do not break. In their emotions lives a fire stronger than steel. The daughter touched her chest, feeling her heart beat fast. She realized what her people saw as weakness. Fear, compassion, hope was not weakness at all. It was power. The next day she began to train in secret, not with heavy weapons she could not lift, but with her mind. She studied the enemy's patterns. She practiced unpredictability. She learned to control her fear, turning it into focus. She whispered to herself, "I will not fight as they do, I will fight as I am." At night she walked through the lower decks of the palace, where younger warriors gathered, uncertain. She spoke to them quietly, telling them of the human way, of fighting with imagination, of using the heart as well as the hand. At first they laughed, but when she showed them her sketches, when she explained how her plan had saved lives, some listened. One young warrior said, "She sees what we cannot." Another added, "Her words gave us victory when all else failed." Slowly, whispers turned to nods, nods turned to trust. And though she was still called broken by many, a small group began to believe. Meanwhile, the enemy was not silent. In their dark ships, their commanders spoke in voices cold as ice. "The half-blood child," one hissed. "She is dangerous," another growled. "She carries the spark of chaos, the spark of humans. She must be destroyed." Their eyes glowed with hatred, and their fleets prepared for the next strike. Back in the Empire, the father began to notice changes. He saw his daughter moving through the halls with confidence he had never seen, her steps stronger, her eyes sharper. He saw warriors bow their heads slightly as she passed. He felt something strange in his chest, pride, but he crushed it quickly, telling himself, "It is only illusion, she is still weak." But in truth, the daughter was growing. Her human blood gave her what her people lacked: vision beyond order, strength beyond pride. She felt emotions deeply, fear, sorrow, hope, and she turned them into weapons no enemy could predict. One evening, she walked to the observation deck, the stars burning above, and she felt the pull again. Her visions surged. Her body trembled. She saw the enemy fleet preparing. She saw betrayal in the Empire's own halls, and she saw herself standing before both, not broken, but unyielding. Her voice rising above the storm, she fell to her knees, gasping, and when the vision ended, she whispered to the stars, "This is my path. This is why I was born." Her hands clenched into fists, and for the first time, she did not feel shame for her human blood. She felt pride. The next day, during a council meeting, a captured enemy was brought before the Empire. A twisted figure chained, its voice hollow, its eyes burning. When it looked at the crowd, it laughed. "You cannot win." It hissed, "Your walls will fall, your fleets will burn. Only one among you can change the future." Its gaze turned, falling on the daughter, its voice lowering. "The child of two worlds, she is the key." Gasps filled the hall. Commanders whispered. The father's face turned pale. The daughter stood frozen, her heart pounding. The enemy knew of her. The enemy feared her. She stepped back, her breath shaking, her mind racing. If the enemy saw her as a threat, then her visions, her spark, her human blood, it was all real. She was not broken, she was chosen. That night, she stood at the window, the stars shining like witnesses, her voice steady at last. "I will not hide anymore. I will not fear what I am human blood. I am alien born, I am both, and in that lies my strength." The spark burned brighter, and the galaxy trembled, for the broken daughter was beginning to rise. The Empire's halls grew restless. The sound of war echoed through every corridor. The enemy had not returned yet, but everyone knew they would. The skies were quiet, but it was the silence before the storm. Commanders sharpened their blades, ships were rebuilt, new strategies were drawn, yet behind the walls of steel and pride, cracks began to spread. The daughter felt it. Whispers followed her wherever she went. Some spoke of her victories, some spoke of her visions, some even called her hope, but others spat when she passed. "Half-blood," they muttered. "She brings shame. She is dangerous." Their eyes burned with jealousy, for they saw how soldiers looked at her now, how the younger warriors listened when she spoke. Her father's heart was torn. Each day he watched her grow stronger, her steps firm, her voice steady. He could not deny that her presence had saved them in the first battle, but still his pride choked him. He had built his life on the belief that strength came from purity, from tradition, from the blood of warriors. How could he now admit that the child he once called broken was rising higher than all? The council met often in secret, their voices low, their arguments sharp. "The girl has power," one said, "but it is not the power of our kind," another hissed. "She is human blood, she is a danger to our people. If the enemy fears her, perhaps they are right to do so." Greed and pride twisted their hearts, and one among them decided her fate. This commander, known for ambition, approached the shadows. He spoke through hidden channels, his words reaching ears far beyond the Empire. "I will give you the girl," he whispered to the enemy. "She is yours in return. Spare me when you conquer her people." The voice that answered was cold and eager. "Bring her to us and you shall live." The daughter, unaware of the poison around her, continued her secret training. She guided the young warriors who believed in her, teaching them to fight with imagination, to break patterns, to think like humans. Each night they gathered in hidden halls, and each night she felt the spark inside her burn brighter. But shadows watched her, waiting. One evening, her father called her to the great hall, his eyes heavy, his voice distant. "You bring unrest," he told her. "The people are divided. Some whisper that you are chosen. Others whisper that you are cursed. I do not know what to believe." She stepped forward, her voice trembling yet strong. "Believe in me, Father. I am not weak. I am not broken. I see what others do not. Let me stand beside you." But he turned away. "Your path is not mine," he said, his heart torn but his pride stronger. That same night, the traitor made his move. He lured the daughter into the outer halls, his words soft. "The council wishes to see you," he lied. "They want to hear your visions," she followed, hopeful, clutching her sketches close, her heart racing. But as they moved deeper into the dark corridors, the air grew cold, the lights dimmed, and she realized too late it was a trap. Shadows fell around her. Enemy soldiers cloaked in darkness stepped forward, their weapons sharp. The commander who had betrayed her stood back, his eyes cold. "Forgive me, child," he muttered. But the stars favor the strong, not the broken. She fought to escape, but they were too many. Their hands gripped her arms. Their chains burned against her skin. She cried out, her voice echoing through the halls, but no one came. Her father far away in his chamber, her loyal soldiers unaware. She was dragged into the blackness, her sketches scattering on the floor, the spark of her destiny falling with them. The enemy ship rose quietly from the shadows, carrying her away. The traitor watched it vanish into the stars, his face pale, his hands trembling. Though he had gained what he wanted, a cold fear crawled into his heart, for even he wondered what the enemy would do with her. In the palace, her absence was discovered too late. Her father stormed into the council chamber, his voice thunderous, "Where is she?" But no one answered. The truth remained hidden, though some suspected betrayal. His eyes darkened with rage and sorrow, for though he had never spoken it aloud, he knew deep inside that losing her was more painful than losing any battle. On the enemy ship, the daughter sat in chains, her eyes filled with tears, yet her heart still burned. She whispered to herself, "They think I am broken. They think I will break. But I will not." She closed her eyes, and the visions came once more, this time sharper, clearer. She saw the heart of the enemy fleet, their weakness hidden deep inside their strength, and she smiled through her tears. The enemy captain stepped forward, his voice like ice. "Half-blood, you are ours now. Your spark will die with us." But she looked up, her voice steady. "You are wrong. My spark has only begun to burn, and far away." In the Empire's darkened halls, the whispers grew louder, some saying she was gone forever, some saying she would return, but none could silence the truth that had already taken root. The broken daughter was no longer just a child. She was a force the stars themselves had begun to notice. The enemy ship drifted through the endless dark, its metal walls cold, its corridors silent. Inside, the daughter sat in chains, her wrists raw, her breath heavy, yet her eyes alive. Though captured, she was not broken. The enemy guards watched her closely, whispering to one another, "This is the half-blood child, the one they fear, the one they call Spark." Some laughed, calling her weak. Others stared with unease, for there was something strange about her gaze, a quiet fire they could not extinguish. She studied everything, the way the guards moved, the sound of the engines, the flicker of the lights. Her visions guided her, showing her paths through the ship. Weaknesses in its walls. She did not need weapons. She needed her mind. One night, as the ship cut across a dying star system, she closed her eyes and let the vision take her. She saw the heart of the enemy, a core of energy pulsing like black fire, powerful yet unstable. She saw their commanders speaking of fear, not of victory. Fear of her, fear of humans, fear of something they could not control. She woke with new strength, whispering to herself, "They fear me. They fear what I am. Then I am not broken. I am their shadow. I am their fire." The enemy captain, a tall figure wrapped in armor of black glass, entered her cell, his voice deep, his tone mocking. "You are a mistake of blood, a child of two worlds. You cannot belong, you cannot lead, you cannot win." But she met his eyes without trembling, her voice soft yet steady. "Then why do you keep me alive if I am broken? Why do you fear me?" His silence was the answer she already knew. Meanwhile, back in the Empire, her absence weighed heavily. The father sat alone in the war hall, his hands trembling though he hid them from his commanders. He thought of her laughter as a child, her small hands reaching for his, her voice calling him father. And though he had never admitted it, he missed her, he needed her. The Empire needed her. Whispers of betrayal grew stronger. Some said a commander had sold her to the enemy. Some said the enemy had found her by fate. But no matter the story, the truth was the same. She was gone, and the Empire felt hollow without her. The younger warriors she had trained gathered in secret, their voices low. "She showed us the way," one said. "She made us see the enemy clearly," another added. "If she is lost, then we are lost too." Yet none gave up hope, for they believed she would return. On the enemy ship, the daughter found her chance. A careless guard dropped a tool near her chains. She seized it when he turned away. Her small fingers worked quickly, her heart racing. The chains loosened. Her wrists burned, but her spirit soared. She was free. She moved through the ship like a shadow, slipping past guards, hiding in the dark corners, her visions guiding her with every step. She reached the control room, her eyes scanning the glowing screens. And there she saw it, the core, the dark heart of their fleet. Unstable, beating like a sick star, she whispered to herself, "This is it. This is their weakness." She memorized every detail, every number, every flicker of light, and though alarms blared, though footsteps thundered behind her, she smiled, for the spark inside her now burned brighter than ever. She was captured again, dragged back to her cell, Beaten, chained, the captain hissed. You cannot escape us. You cannot fight us, but even as blood touched her lips, she smiled, her voice unshaken. I already have. For knowledge was her weapon, and she carried it in her mind. Beyond any chain, beyond any prison. The enemy did not know that their greatest mistake was not capturing her, but underestimating her. They thought her fragile, but fragility gave her freedom. They thought her weak, but weakness gave her vision. They thought her broken, but broken pieces can cut sharper than steel. Days later, an Empire scout ship spotted the enemy vessel drifting near the edge of their space. They attacked, forcing it into retreat. In the chaos, the daughter broke free once more, slipping into an escape pod, her hands trembling, her heart steady. The stars pulling her home. When she returned, the palace erupted. Soldiers gasped, commanders stared. Her father stood frozen, his eyes wide, his heart pounding. She walked into the hall, her clothes torn, her body bruised, but her gaze burning like fire. She raised her voice, clear and strong. I have seen their weakness. I know how to defeat them. Her father stepped forward, his pride shattering, his voice heavy with awe. My daughter, he whispered, words he had never spoken with such weight. You're not broken, she looked at him, her face calm, her voice steady. I never was. The Empire listened. Every soldier, every commander, the hall silent, but for her words. She told them of the enemy's unstable core, of their fear, of their weakness, and as she spoke, hope returned to their hearts. That night, the stars above the Empire shone brighter, as if listening, as if waiting. The daughter stood tall at last, no longer hidden, no longer mocked. She was not a mistake of blood. She was the spark that would carry them beyond the stars. And far away in the dark chambers of the enemy, their leaders trembled, for they knew the truth now. The half-blood child was no longer their prisoner. She was their doom. The Empire's sky burned with light, not of fire, but of hope. Fleets gathered in formation. Warriors prepared their weapons. Commanders studied maps of stars, yet all eyes, all hearts, turned toward one figure standing at the center of the hall. The daughter, once called broken, now burning with purpose. Her voice carried through the chamber, steady and strong. The enemy is powerful, yes, but they are not invincible. They hide their weakness behind fear, their strength behind shadows. Their core is unstable, and we will strike it. Her words were simple, but they carried fire, and even the proudest warriors bowed their heads. Her father stood beside her at last, no longer ashamed, his voice deep, his eyes shining. We fight as one. We fight as she leads us. For her spark is our light. The hall erupted in cheers, the sound of unity echoing through walls that had once held only pride and division. The daughter stepped onto her ship, a vessel rebuilt with speed and cunning. Not strength alone, her loyal squad gathered around her, the young warriors who had believed in her since the beginning. They looked at her with trust, with courage, and she looked back with quiet pride. We will show them what it means to be human, and what it means to be more, she whispered. The enemy fleet arrived like a storm, their ships blotting out the stars, their weapons glowing with unnatural fire. The galaxy trembled at their presence, but the Empire did not tremble this time. They moved into position, their ships sharp and ready, their hearts steady, for they had something new, something the enemy could not understand. Imagination. The first clash shook the heavens. Beams of light cut across the void. Explosions tore through the dark. The enemy pressed forward, confident, ruthless, but the Empire did not meet them with rigid walls. Instead, they moved unpredictably, twisting, breaking patterns, striking where least expected, the daughter's plan alive in every maneuver. She guided them with calm precision, her mind a storm of visions. She saw every weakness, every hesitation, and she used them all. Now strike left, she commanded, and ships dove in wild spirals, destroying enemy wings. Pull back, then turn, she ordered, and fleets danced like shadows, confusing their foes. The enemy commanders snarled. They fight like humans, one hissed. Chaos, madness, no order. But their fear grew, for chaos was winning. The daughter's ship led the charge toward the enemy core. Her father's fleet protecting her path. Fire blazed around them, enemy ships swarming, yet her voice never shook. Forward, do not stop, she called, her hands steady on the controls. Her eyes locked on the vision that had haunted her for so long. Fire, destruction, but now also victory. At the heart of the battle, she saw it, the core pulsing, unstable. A star trapped in chains of metal. Her heart pounded. "There!" she cried. "Strike there!" Her fleet unleashed everything, weapons blazing, the core trembled. Cracks spreading like lightning. The enemy screamed in fury, their voices echoing through the void. No, she must not, but it was too late. The spark had already ignited. The unstable heart of their fleet erupted, light tearing through darkness, fire swallowing their ships. The unstoppable brought to ruin, the Empire's warriors cheered. Their voices carried across the stars. Victory. Victory. But the daughter did not cheer yet. Her eyes scanned the wreckage, her mind calm. "Do not stop. Not yet. Finish what remains," she commanded, her fleet striking swiftly, cutting down the last shadows, until silence returned to the galaxy. Only then did she breathe. Her hands trembling, her chest heavy. She looked at the stars and whispered, "It is done." Her father's ship drew near, his voice came through the comms, deep, heavy with emotion. "My daughter, you have saved us. You have saved all." She closed her eyes, her heart swelling. For the first time she heard not scorn, not shame, but pride. When she returned to the palace, the Empire bowed before her. Soldiers, commanders, even the council who had doubted her, their voices rose. "She is not broken. She is our savior." The father stepped forward, placing his hand on her shoulder, his voice steady. "I called you broken, I was wrong. You are the bridge between worlds. You are the spark that lit the stars." Tears filled her eyes, but she did not weep from sorrow. She wept from strength. She whispered to herself, "I was never broken, I was human, and that made me whole." The Empire changed after that day, no longer bound by pride alone. They embraced imagination, compassion, and unity. They saw that strength was not only in steel and muscle, but in heart and hope, and at the center of it all stood the daughter, the half-blood child who had been called weak, who had been mocked as fragile, but who had risen to prove that humanity was not weakness. Humanity was victory. The stars burned brighter. Galaxies whispered her name, and far beyond, even in the ruins of their enemies, her legend spread. The tale of the girl who was called broken, but who proved her power beyond the stars.